Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Connecticut.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone, and happy New Year. Great. We're going to start with public participation. People speaking this morning that you are very much. We appreciate that. Thank you. The first person is Catherine Rowe. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments to the State Board of Education at your January 11th board meeting. My name is Catherine Rowe. I'm the chair of the Educational Psychology Department at Western Connecticut State University and now president of the AACTE Connecticut chapter. AACTE Connecticut is an association of 13 public and private colleges and universities that provide educator preparation programs to students interested in the education profession. We promote and strongly support highly qualified teaching and education in the state schools and are advocates for robust educational leadership. On behalf of the AACTE, thank you to the Board of Education, Commissioner Russell Tucker, the Department of Education, and especially those individuals from the Talent Office, Shawana, Lauren, and now Cheyenne, with whom many of us from AACTE work with frequently. We want to thank you, the administration, for your efforts over the past year to help us secure $2 million of federal and state funding from the American Rescue Plan Act for the next 2 years to help cover various certification testing costs for future educators. As Connecticut continues to face teacher shortages, these funds have the potential to positively impact the recruitment and retention of students in our teaching preparation programs. We want to continue to work with you, the administration, and policymakers to hopefully provide a long-term source of funding and other initiatives to ensure our state has the best and most capable, as always, and please do not hesitate to reach out to me or my colleagues in AACTE on issues of mutual concern. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Next speaker is Christine Repstock.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Christine Repstock from Middletown, Connecticut. I am a transgender woman. I'm here to speak out against social emotional learning, which introduces sex and gender issues in our school curriculum, and particularly to the elementary and middle school. This was going to lead kids down a slippery slope of gender confusion. We've seen examples in Greenwich this summer. The book Gender Queer, which is supposed to be rated for ages 12 to 18, is very sexually explicit and was found in the children's section of the Greenwich Public Library. That book does not belong anywhere near a children's section of a public library or public school classroom. In Sulington in September, a 10th grade teacher brought in an unvetted vocabulary sheet with white privilege, social justice, transgender, and cisgender. We also saw Megan Watrous, a parent in Darien, speak out against the book Julian is a Mermaid for her daughter in her school. These are not outliers. These are happening everywhere in our state, through our country. Yeah, it's very brutal to live with. And our kids are being introduced in the schools that gender trans is being cool. It's a fad. It's not. Unfortunately, we've seen kids be able to tell teachers or school officials A little girl could say, I really feel like a boy inside, and I'm afraid to tell mom and dad. And because of state statute 19A-14C, which allows mental health professionals to treat kids without parental consent and knowledge, we're seeing children be put on puberty blockers, hormone replacement therapy, and surgeries. This is wrong. It's child abuse. I've been on hormone replacement therapy for 3 years, and I had a cancer scare. This could happen to me. This could happen to our children. And this is coming from our public schools. Please, in the future, let's eliminate SEL part of our classroom. And if anyone thinks I'm anti-LGBTQ kid, I'm not. There's ways we could help them without medicating kids, and it emanates from the home and not the school. And for anyone 7-year-old, everyone else is different. Please, let's be respectful and kind to everyone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Tom Stringfellow.
Good morning. I'm Stringfellow, a visitor from Manchester. I just want to start off saying that Martin Luther King holiday coming up Monday, Glastonbury, they are having a program about health equity from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Smith Middle School on 628 Hayward. Maybe was attending this other event noted that occurred a few days ago. I want to bring to your attention what on by Dr. Nick Gordon. We spoke that about 2 years ago. We celebrated during the last years, but it's worth getting. She grew up in Texas and talked about her perspective and history of kind of the old Colonel Travis and James Boyd were slave owners too, and it became a slave state as well as one of the Confederacy. So it has a good history, but it's still messages of rights. Michelle Obama speaks of wisdom. It's really very invitation as First Lady. Very good thought more connected to husband. Always important to see. As I mentioned before, slavery wasn't just whiting. She was black people, indigenous tribes, and came out. That's when it happened. People look at what get some clearness. You were forced to try to I know it's about science and I know astronomy cover recently top 10 story. I think there's always have some material there no science would be a lot parents no that speak of that just in that any old in what I guess it comes down to respect for differences in needs but you know our society we just require people respecting expected talking about if you got let's share spoken it's based on one that well, hopefully and just have
Final speaker, Chris Lewis.
Good morning. Your agenda about fair. The experience of state topics and science these are 21st century content topics and teaching kids how to be good, how to understand and society. She's a role student. She's a leader in the avid program, emphasizes being close to. She is a volunteer. She works and she's a and then she fellowship and kids look at their teachers and Carol. I see right now, and I've been to the country, and I just do all and keep and over the last decade has worked to establish a year for my and the focus on professional development, training, and healthcare business, professionals, so that they can help. And so, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I just really wanted to add, I'm thanking Chris, who is now State Representative Chris Paulus. And I believe you're on.
We have no executive session scheduled for today, and to honor and recognize our special guests, we are going to move item 11 to the agenda at this point. So, G, we would bring to our first honor.
Now you know. It is my pleasure to recognize Principal Donna Hayward. So I'd like to ask Principal Hayward, Board Chair Suzanne Sack, and Superintendent Jeff Wibby to join me here, please.
So it gives me great pleasure to announce here that Principal Donna Hayward, principal of Haddam Killingworth High School, Region 17, was recognized recently as the 2023 National Principal of the Year by the National Association of Secondary School Principals. So congratulations, Donna. Now, I like to think that at the department, we saw this early. We recognized Haddam Killingworth High School actually as a blue ribbon school when Donna was a leader there, as she still is, in September of 2018. And in their blue ribbon application, I just wanted to pull out a couple of nuggets, and then I'll turn it over to the principal and the board chair to say a few words. In their blue ribbon application, the school administration expressed that they're most proud of their success in personalizing the student experience. They offer a wide range of, quote, traditional courses, but also a variety of online learning opportunities and an internship program where students earn credit through experiential learning within the community. And they've developed a system of support students who are interested in pursuing highly unique opportunities not found in typical courses. And in the most recent year, when we started looking at students taking dual credit opportunities in partnership with our colleges and universities across the state, Haddam Killingworth High School, 45% of their 11th and 12th graders are doing it. The state average is around 20%. So they're clearly far exceeding that. And this is not Donna's first recognition. She's used to this. She was honored as the Connecticut Assistant Principal of the Year in 2006. She began her career as a math teacher and has served in school leadership positions in Rocky Hill and Suffield. So once again, please join me in congratulating Donna on being named the 2023 National Principal of the Year by the National Association of Secondary School Principals. Donna, we were proud of you and we wish you the very best going forward. So I'm going to turn it over to you to say a few words.
Thank you. Good morning. I first want to thank you for recognizing me this morning. I really appreciate any time that anybody recognizes an educator, whether it be me or someone else. I would also like to take the time to recognize and thank my superintendent, Jeff Wibby, and my board chairperson, Suzanne Sack. I have been in this passion for 30 years, and I have come to know the value of a supportive superintendent and a supportive board chair, so thank you very much. I am humbled and honored to receive this award. As such, I know that I speak for the nearly 100,000 principals across the nation this next year in a variety of capacities. I have just returned from the Extra Yard Teacher Summit in Los Angeles. In fact, I landed at around midnight, so I'm not really sure what day it is. While there, I was joined by Secretary Cardona, and for a brief moment by a second gentleman, Mr. Harris, who celebrated the 50 Teachers of the Year nationwide, which was fantastic. And as part of our work over the last weekend, we did talk about the teacher shortage, recruiting teachers, elevating education, and elevating educators. I am a deeply passionate defender and believer in public education. So again, I thank you this morning, and I thank you in advance for anything the State Department of Education and this board can do to support and elevate public educators. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm now going to turn it over to Board Chair Suzanne Sack. When we first invited the principal, she was absolutely adamant about coming and supporting our principal, so I'm thrilled.
Thank you, and thank you, Donna. Thank you for making time on today's agenda to recognize High School Principal Donna Hayward for her recent award as National Principal of the Year. We're deeply grateful to her dedication to our district and her dedication to our students. She has served this noble profession for over 30 years, as mentioned, 25 of them as an administrator. She also serves in many statewide and local leadership roles, supporting her peers and the profession of education. And she does this all while raising her lovely daughter. Principal Hayward and her colleagues kept our schools open in full during the entire pandemic. I don't need to tell anybody in this audience what that took and how important that was to our students in retrospect. Our 2 elementary schools have just been named schools of distinction by the state, and I believe in no short measure that's because of the fortitude to safeguard in-school instructional time. In receiving this award, Principal Hayward offered advice: be brave and believe in educators. She acknowledged the responsibility that comes with this honor, and she will learn and grow with that responsibility. Our SB 17 has set forth a path for a strategic plan that demands demonstrated, measurable results in academic achievement and emotional well-being, capacity and high standards for our educators and leaders, and efficiencies in all areas, along with campus renewal. Our small towns of Haddam and Killingworth will do their part to refresh, reform, and reward excellent public education. And we can do this because we have leaders like Principal Hayward, who are brave and who are willing to learn, even after 30 years, to bring a community together around the needs of its children and inspire them to change the world. Because I think we would all agree that the world can use a little changing. Thank you for acknowledging Principal Hayward, and I want to personally thank her for her good work and her character, and I want to thank the Board of Education for inviting us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I thought maybe Mr. Wibby was speaking, but yes, we're going to be.
I did offer the opportunity, but I don't know.
You heard enough from me.
We're going to briefly pause just so we can present a plaque and get some pictures.
Great. We can have a call.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, you're doing some pictures. You can come up here for the picture. Yeah. Nice to meet you, Val.
I think you should move over this way just a little bit. Everybody push on in. There we go. 1, 2, 3. This way as well.
Was the apron in the background? Okay.
Thank you.
I made contact with
My next recognition, Teacher of the Year and the finalists, Shawana Tucker and Mary Glassman, will be presenting for us. And Shawana, when we're all done, we'll briefly pause for pictures of everyone.
Thank you so much, and good morning. To our board members, I am very pleased to be here for one of the recognition ceremonies that is housed within the talent office. And I am here with my teammate, Mary Glassman, who serves as the Education Diversity Coordinator in the talent office, as well as the State Teacher of the Year Coordinator. And I also would like to acknowledge Sharon Fuller from the talent office, because we're small, but we all chip in and we get the work done. We do have a Special of the Year Council and our 2007 Connecticut Teacher of the Year. So at this time, Mary and I are going to begin our presentation and introduce to you our Teacher of the Year for 2023 and our finalists. This is the 70th year that Connecticut has participated in the Teacher of the Year program in collaboration with the Connecticut Teacher of the Year Council. The program is designed to identify from among many outstanding teachers throughout Connecticut one teacher who will serve as a visible and vocal representative of what is best in the profession. The program celebrates excellence in teaching by recognizing teachers who have inspired a love for learning in their students and who have distinguished themselves in the profession. This year, there were more than 100 District Teachers of the Year applications. From those applications, the Teacher of the Year and finalists are selected by the Connecticut Teacher of the Year Council after a review of candidate applications, interviews, and site visits, as well as with faculty, parents, administrators, and students.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker. I, too, want to add my thanks to the Connecticut Teacher of the Year Council for their time, dedication of the volunteers who sit on the interview committee. There were so many impressive candidates, and certainly difficult to select the representatives. But they did a great job, and we have 3 finalists and 1 teacher to introduce you to today. I'll ask Lisa Abel to join us here. It's my pleasure to introduce Lisa, our first Teacher of the Year finalist and Simsbury Teacher of the Year. Lisa is a music teacher at Simsbury High School who has been teaching for 19 years. Lisa has been the band director at Simsbury High School for the past 15 years. In support of her application, her district noted, quote, Lisa is a woman with a wide range of strengths, intelligence, determination, an incredible work ethic, the ability to see the big picture, and a focus on people. She has had a notably positive impact on the culture of our band program and our school, and she is regarded by everyone in the music department as an informal leader of their work. She is a teacher completely devoted to supporting her students' growth as musicians and citizens, and she has found innumerable ways to connect with kids with the community. During her finalist interviews, one student noted, she is the most caring teacher I've ever had. Every experience I've had here somehow ties back to her. Please join us in congratulating the Teacher of the Year and Connecticut Teacher of the Year finalist, Lisa Abel. I think we're going to move on to our second finalist. Thanks, Lisa. Our second finalist is John Allen. John is Putnam's Teacher of the Year and a social studies teacher at Putnam High School with 7 years of teaching experience. In nominating John, the district noted, John leaves a lasting impression on his students. He naturally forms genuine relationships with students from diverse backgrounds. He uses course content to level the playing field and meaningful inquiry to engage students in authentic learning experience. John makes room at the table for every student's voice and provides feedback with subjects. He empowers students to think critically and communicate effectively about the world around them. He empowers students to be advocates and find by experience. During his finalist interviews, one student said, quote, every student should have the opportunity to have a teacher like Mr. Allen at least once in their life. Please join us in recognizing Putnam's Teacher of the Year, Connecticut Teacher of the Finalist, John Allen. Our third Teacher of the Year finalist is Jennifer Rodriguez of the Newington Public Schools, and she will be accompanied by her superintendent, Dr. Maureen Gomez. Jennifer is an elementary teacher at Amarillo School with more than 14 years of teaching experience. In nominating her for the award, her district said, Mrs. Rodriguez is highly effective in her role, and when you enter her classroom, you need to understand why. She cultivates a climate that is welcoming, safe, and supportive. supportive, both physically and emotionally. Her classroom is bright, print-rich, and welcoming. Jennifer establishes and maintains a climate that is positive, innovative, and exciting. In her final interview, a parent said, quote, "She makes every student feel like they're the most important person. She thinks kids should be seen and heard. She always gives us a voice." Please join us in congratulating the Teacher of the Year and Connecticut Teacher finalist. Our 2023 Connecticut Teacher of the Year is Carolyn Kilmer from Bristol, Connecticut. She is accompanied by Dr. Catherine T. Carbone, Superintendent, Michael Higgins, Principal, Bristol High School, and Dr. Sam Holloway, Director of the Carolyn is a science educator for 20 years, the last 15 of which she has been teaching biology, biological forensics at Bristol Eastern High School. She also teaches advanced individual determination AVID program elective class. College will come from populations underrepresented at the collegiate level so the students can attain their dreams of attending college or other post-secondary learning institutions. In her application, Carolyn said, "What keeps me coming back to this profession every year is not the content I teach, but the children I get to meet and the role I get to play in their lives. The reward is my students' success and happiness living their life." She wrote, "A graduating student may not but I hope you will remember how I sparked curiosity, challenged them, fostered discovery, helped self-learners." Carolyn also learned most skills they belong to the successful classroom. She is continuously amazed at how students reach all the right decisions. She believes that learning is not about knowing the right thing. It is a process of discovery. Please join us in congratulating the 2023 Teacher of the Year, Carolyn. Your council. My entourage, thank you so much for showing up to support me and my family and friends. So help me where I am today. I'm honored to get to work and I know that there's a lot of work to be done. From continuing to promote education, change positive impact, right opportunities for all current others, and most importantly, I look forward to the first parent teacher choice. There's that is really profession. And I do not have all these but I am confident and all of and our nation we can also find solutions and bring about change to our leadership. I am that one. And with my best to bring honor to our profession, shows how valuable teachers are the future of our society. Hopefully, you inspire others to do our job and desire prestigious, as Principal Hayward said earlier, to elevate the profession. Thank you.
Sure. When I hear the term forensics, because of the narrowness of my...
Forensics, in the first half of the year, we talk about biotechnology, genetic engineering, and those kinds of things, getting along with DNA. And the second half is mostly forensics, the DNA behind forensics. So we're talking more about the scientific aspect. We do a small unit about the courtroom and how you have to be able to talk, if you are a forensic scientist, to the jury as of peers in a level that they can understand. But that's a very small unit. It's mostly scientific based.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Any other board members would like to comment?
I just want to say, just congratulations to all of them. I know Principal Hayward last night was waiting to talk about, this is what we talk about, what you write with schools, and making sure that we are indeed elevating and supporting all our educators. Connecticut being recognized as with the Principal of the Year and with all the work that you're doing as Teachers of the Year, and we just so appreciate being able to highlight and elevate and just to say kudos for the work that you're doing and that you continue to do with your colleagues. And so we're there with you to support you, but also to hear from you. This is not just talking at you. So those in the room know that Teacher of the Year Council will be convening Teachers of the Year with a sit down with me in a week or so, just to hear from them. What can we do when we talk about diversifying the profession, but also what can we do for your own mental health and well-being? Because as I always say, if you're not okay, then our students will not be okay. And so that's really important for us. So just appreciate being able to have you here with us. So we got to go through the 2-hour program not long ago, but that not all of our board members were able to be there. So to have you here with our finalists was really important to bring you into this space. And what a way to start out the first board meeting of the new year. So thank you very much.
Certainly. I'd also like to thank Shawana, Mary, Sharon, your whole team for highlighting these special recognitions. It's so important that we do that, not just today, last month with the para-educators, so it is very important. So I thank you for all the work that you do as well. And briefly pause so we can go, I guess we'll go to the hallway this time to take some pictures.
And oh, by the way, watch your mail because something is coming.
Yeah. The chair, I too want to congratulate all of you for all the good work, but most importantly, what I heard from all of you is that you put students first. And that's so important. Let's not forget that. Okay? And again, congratulations to the staff and all the good work, but most importantly, let's keep that soul in mind for our students, because they need people like you out there. Thank you.
I'll take over. Yeah, I mean, it might be the. I think it's just, you do this.
You want to correct. I know, I have. So one thing is a little, my records did.
You're sitting there. Exact same setup, except you got back screen. Yeah, we just use it. So now for you might get a child, I don't know if the audio is on the screen, audio is no problem. Well, then you cut off the screen. I'm not asking you to read upstairs. Join the team. And instead of listening to whatever that audio is, it's really what everybody's going to hear.
That's really important. My dad got real, and then when he like, back up again.
Our next item is the minutes. If I could have a motion on that.
Second.
Any changes, edits? In favor?
I may want to add one thing, Patricia McKinney Maruco, her name was, missing from the attendance list, so that's the only, edit that can be made.
Okay, thank you. Voted yes, okay. The next is the report of the chair that you received yesterday from Karen, also in your packet. That's why I'm sitting in her seat today. But I just want to add one thing that did come up in public participation. She made reference to the Killingly hearing in her minutes. That is we're still in an ongoing process. So we are now in the process of establishing some dates to meet. So yes, we did have to cancel our first two original hearings, but there was something that's ongoing. So hopefully we'll know that very soon, sooner than later. And with that, we will move to the report.
Thank you very much. And good morning again, Vice Chair Benham and all board members, as this is their first meeting of the new year. I'm going to say Happy New Year as well, even though we're 10 days into the new year. You have my report, and as usual, I will highlight selected areas and then transition to our agency updates.
Thank you very much.
In a few minutes in our agency report, you will have a staffing update. Want to make sure that we're keeping the board informed of where we are with our agency counts or recruitment as I keep talking about our very small but really, really mighty Army here, but want to keep you engaged in that, so we will report that. Emerging, I've mentioned here that we participated, I along with members of our leadership team, by invitation of the New Haven delegation, participated and presented at the New Haven Education Forum. Chair Deborah Walton was there as well, and she noted that in our report that she sent to you yesterday. If you recall, in my November report, I shared that I was joined by members of our leadership team. We actually went, and members from the turnaround office, we went to New Haven to meet with administrators, New Haven Board of Education members who were part of that, and we were also joined at that meeting by Senator Looney and Representative Walker. But this was the agency going in to say we have some issues that we need to work on together. And so this meeting was a follow-up that the delegation invited there. What I did in your supplemental packet, I shared with you the PowerPoint deck that we used for the New Haven Forum, and it was recorded, and we should probably, I'll ask Eric to find that link for you and send it out to our board members so you're able to see. I believe it was a 2-hour meeting, but I wanted folks to see that. So that information is in your packet. That
was Eric's Oval.
Yes. Thank you very much. So, yes, our communications director, Eric Scoville, will send that information out to you. But I wanted to call that to your attention that you do have that deck in your packet available to you.
And I'm just going to add to that, too, that I did participate in this webinar, and it is worth watching, certainly. We've discussed New Haven before in the past, but it certainly is something that all board members should be aware of. Excellent presentation, by the way, by Commissioner and the staff.
Thank you very much. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention is an annual briefing with legislators. This is the second year that we have did almost like a town hall forum for legislators that allowed them to join us. It was virtual, and in your supplemental package is that PowerPoint deck that we use as well, and it is the 2022 the session impacts on K-12 education. And I, along with our leadership team here, also they were able to sign up, and we offered 2 opportunities. And literally, we really compiled the list of the legislation that passed throughout the previous session, so it was kind of all in one place. Answer their questions. We also updated them on the previous year's legislation and kind of where we are along the path, and really just take questions from them that basically about any topics that were of interest to legislators. But the feedback was really great, with legislators saying, really thank you for the opportunity just to meet with us in that kind of a forum to answer their questions and just to talk about education in general. So I'm sharing with you in your packet the deck that we use for that opportunity as well. So I wanted to just highlight that for you. The other thing I wanted to share is that we've been in really good conversation, strategic conversation with President Chang and the CSBU system to talk about strengthening our partnerships. I know Dr. Couture sits on our board and has been a part of those conversations, and we're talking about expanded access to higher education by our high school graduates, development of dual credit programs, and strengthen our educator preparation pipeline. So I just want you to know that those conversations are happening and really very productive. I also wanted to share it was a pleasure to have a EdSite virtual interactive learning session for parents and families that occurred. Mr. Exley participated in that meeting. We had sent the information out to the board, but it was really about bringing together to learn about how to use EdSite data, and the title was "How is your child doing?" Basically, and how to use data to inform that. And so, my shout out to Ajit, Gopalakrishnan, John Frazanelli, Judy Carson, and our partners, which were the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center, Connecticut Family School Partnerships at CREC, and Connecticut PTA for making this possible. And it was so very well received. People were able to use their devices, and Ajit did a nice interactive session with them where they were actually learning how to use the EdSite data portal. The bottom line is we have a great data, public-facing data system, which is very transparent in our state that as well. My appreciation to CABE for facilitating a webinar this past week with board members and superintendents about our reading curriculum legislation and our waiver process. Again, over 200 participants were on that, and my appreciation to staff, Irene Parisa, Melissa Hickey, and Ajit Gopalakrishnan for facilitating that meeting as well. And finally, yesterday, we launched cohort 2 of the Science of Reading Masterclass that we've been talking about. 11 districts, over 100 district leaders. So we now have between cohort 1 and cohort 2, over 200 district leaders that are really taking advantage of this premier professional learning opportunity around the science of reading. And again, thanking the staff for facilitating that work. So that is, again, just pulling out and highlighting things from my report, and then we'll jump into the agency updates, unless that there are questions. Yes.
Sherry, maybe this is a folder. Your report. I'm looking at what's in our folder on the staffing update. I can't make any sense out of it.
Okay, we're going there. Yes. And hopefully we will make sense out of it for you, Mr. Taylor. But with that, if there are no questions, then we'll jump into our agency updates, and Kathy will be the first on deck for us to talk about our staffing update. We'll talk about our staffing update, and then we'll go into a chronic absence update. I know how important this is for the board, talking about the LEAP program, and we have some folks we to hear from who's doing this work on the ground. We'll then talk about academic recovery, to focus on aligned districts, and that will be our report. So Kathy, we'll have our first slide. Okay.
Moving here?
Maybe it's not moving. Kathy, maybe you can just start.
Certainly. Let me grab my, I was going to cheat on this one.
Next one, next slide. Perfect.
Thank you.
Good morning, Vice Chairman, Commissioner, board members, and Mr. Taylor. This was a perfect question. We figured that it would be helpful to have some explanation. So one of the questions I know the board has been asking the commissioner to provide updates on are the staffing levels for the agency, which is a more confusing question in some respects than you would think. So the far left-hand column that says account, these are the general fund accounts that the agency has funding available for staffing. The major funding source for staffing for this agency is our personal services line item. But some of our grant programs have an admin set aside that we can use for staffing. So the second column, regular or temporary, regular would be a permanent employee, full-time employee with the department. Temporary is our current retirees that we can rehire to give us additional capacity while we hire their permanent replacement. So that's what the R and the T stand for. Now the authorized position count. Every year when the General Assembly passes the budget and the governor signs it, the General Assembly releases their own statistical analysis, releases a budget book that summarizes all of the actions in the session and the final budget and the activities the agencies must carry out. In that, there is a chart that provides what each agency's authorized position count is, authorized general fund position count is. And so that is the numbers that you see in the authorized position count column. Now, this is why it gets a little confusing. Even though we have
275 authorized positions. We're not funded for 275 positions. So that's why the next two columns are entitled filled positions established and vacant positions established. So if the positions are established, those are the ones that the agency would have sufficient budget to actually fund. And so I realize it's a little confusing, but this is true for every state agency. It's not unique to the department. But we thought it was important that you not get the impression that we could actually fund the difference between 103 filled regular positions and the 275 authorized. We would only have funding available to fund 102 of those vacancies. So as you can see at the moment, we have 9 full-time general fund positions that under our personal services line item. And then under the various accounts, adult education has one, mastery exams, which is, of course, is SBAC no longer, but that happens to be the title of the account. Has 8 filled staff. The chef settlement account has 1. Have under personal services, if you go across from where it says under regular temporary fees, we have 16 filled, retired. We have another 13 that some of which are actually in the process of being renewed or refilled to provide us capacity this year. And the same thing in adult education, there is 1 rehired retiree, and that position is filled. They are back with us. So our total active filled general fund staff that are working in the department right now is 190, and that's the combination of regular positions and rehired retirees. So that's the current general fund staffing capacity. We are recruiting for the 102 at some point in the recruitment process.
And that truly is the big takeaway here that I really want folks to understand. We're authorized for 275, but when you look at the established filled positions and those that are vacant that we're still authorized to fill, I just really want folks to understand the capacity challenge that we have here at the agency. And so when I come to board meetings, I'm constantly calling out the staff and saying, you know, for the amount of work, nation-leading work that we're doing, it is the small staff. And we are much leaner than we've ever been, Kathy. We're down from where the agency was. And so I just really want folks to have that in this space to understand where we are. And we're working really very hard with DAS during the recruitment process. But again, I just really wanted folks to understand where we are with the agency staffing.
And I think it's important to know we are making some progress. So we have positions that have been posted, interviews are being conducted, but this didn't happen overnight. And so, you know, I'm not anticipating that. I anticipate it's going to take us another year to 18 months to really probably, you know, bring that down to what I would anticipate would be a normal vacancy rate if we went back pre-pandemic, pre-retirement. Our annual vacancy rate was about 7% for the year based on, you know, just normal turnover, people retiring, taking another position. You know, being closer to 50% is certainly not where we wish to be. But we are working diligently with DAS, and they have hired an additional person to assist us. So we're actually seeing progress now, which is a good thing. And
Shirley, I find these numbers astounding, frankly. What work, how would you prioritize the work? What isn't being done that you would like to have being done?
That's a great question, and I'll say, you know, we have those conversations here all the time. Yeah, you know, we're prioritizing those requirements in legislation for us to get done, or the things that we have to do federally. We have a lot of federal requirements and deadlines that we still have to meet, which is why we so appreciate the staff who retired and said yes to continuing to be with us as retirees. But those are the conversations that we're constantly having with our leaders around what work needs to be done or what work still, you know, we may need to let sit for a bit in order to move forward. And you'll see that. I'll just say one thing, like legislative reports in some cases are delayed, you know, based on that. But it is so hard to determine what are the priorities because all these, you know, there's needs everywhere. Mr. Taylor, and folks are constantly knocking on the door saying, where is this or where is that? Sure. And, you know, trying to make sure that we're there to support our educators in our school districts as well.
Don?
I hear what you're saying, Commissioner, and I've heard you loud and clear, Kathy. As the chair of the Finance Committee, I've been upset for a while. You know, finance, which is a critical part of everything that's done here, because if you don't have the money, you don't have the money, and this money's not being watched. You know, I've only been able to hold 2 committee meetings all year. Our Director of Internal Audit has been in a temporary worker retiree position for almost a year. And I just, I'm kind of shocked that we have, you know, and I know that person wants to, wants to build a house in another state, is ready to move, and, you know, we can't find a replacement. My other concern, frankly, for you, Commissioner, is your position of deputy has been vacant now for almost a year. The other deputy position has been vacant for 6 months. Are we any closer to finding some help for you? You know, and do we have a chief turnaround officer or have interim people in there? I'm just concerned about these critical positions. And just when do you anticipate they're going to be done?
So thank you, Mr. Harrison. Really appreciate that as well. And frankly, it's one of the reasons we're bringing it here. So it's open and transparent. We are in the throes of working through with the deputy commission, the deputy positions right now. And Kathy has been assigned. Thanks, Kathy. Kathy meets with DAS now on a weekly basis so that we can really keep a good sense of the timeline in the positions. And also, Mr. Harris, a part of the reason here is that on a monthly basis, we will now be updating the board as to where we are with these positions. We're having these conversations across the board with everyone that is in a position to support us as we continue to add to that list of folks that we need in, because again, it's the support legislatively, as you mentioned, but it is also for this agency needs to be a healthy one, fully staffed for us to be able to do the work of leading the education efforts in our state. And so we will provide some updates with timelines on that for you, which is what I know that you're asking, which is really important. Frankly, this keeps me up at night when we know the work that needs to be done and how hard the staff continues to work to be able to get all of this, the work going. So I appreciate the concern. It's important for us.
What are the reasons for the vacancies? I mean, is it hard to find people for these positions or what?
Now, some of these really we're working with DAS. As some of you may know that maybe it's a few years ago, that the HR function was all consolidated under DAS. Before that, our individual agencies were all doing our own HR efforts separately. It all got consolidated under the Department of Administrative Services. And so we continue to work with them as they're doing this recruitment for pretty much the entire state and all our state agencies, and working together to make sure that the work could get done. If you recall, we also became a part of the SMART unit, the small agency unit. So we've gone through the transition. I've shared that with you at previous board meetings. And as Kathy mentioned, it certainly is improving. However, as you can see, we still have over 100 positions that are in the pipeline that we're working to fill.
This is probably a delicate question that you may not want to answer.
Okay, good to know that.
Do you get the sense that fiscal positions are being prioritized over substantive policy decisions across the state, and that's part of the reason you're having such trouble filling so many positions?
And I don't believe there's a fiscal decision being made. I just think it's a process of being able to mobilize and utilize the entire system for all our state agencies that need positions filled. But I can see it is a priority, that it is a priority for DAS to support all our state agencies to make sure that we have the staffing that we need. Just, like us, I know DAS, they also have to staff up their enterprise as well in order to make sure that they've got sufficient staff to be doing all this. And I know that is certainly a priority of the commissioner there and of the governor's office to make sure that they're able to do that.
Was that centralization legislatively mandated or is it administratively mandated?
So it began as an administrative action. However, the legislature codified it in the budget. So those staff people were formally removed from our budget and transferred to DAS. But I think to the commissioner's point, we kind of had several imperfect storms at the same time. Not the least of which was that this past July, if you didn't retire prior to this past July, there was a change in benefits. And depending upon it, I think the combination of COVID and the combination of, whether or not people wanted to, long-term employees wanted to be subject to that change in retirement benefits kind of led maybe more people to go than, and to go all at once. Normally we don't have, like in my office, I had half of the staff leave within an 8-month period. Retire. And when I say leave, I mean retire. So that's not normal by any means. So I think it just, the combination of COVID and the changes to the pension system with a workforce that was an older workforce. The department's demographic was 75% of our workforce prior to this was over the age of 50. So, and that's true statewide. This is not unique just to SDE. So it was kind of a confluence of many things.
The other thing that was going through my mind and looking at the established funded position, on the long run, do you foresee that funding may be an impact? Kathy?
We're heading into a new biennial budget cycle.
Okay.
So at this point, I don't have. We won't know until the governor's budget's released whether or not there's an adjustment to our budget based on the fact that we have these vacancies, and we won't know till the end of session. However, I do think that the policymakers at OPM and the legislature are very well aware of the needs of the agency, and so I think the commissioner and I would say we would be hopeful that they would take that into account, that this is more of a processing issue than a need issue in terms of how many staff.
Let's keep the hope high.
I do.
I'm glad you said that they are aware, because that would have been my question. They are aware. I look at the board, you know, when some of our, not newer board members, but our newest board members, you know, when we first started, we had a commissioner and 2 deputies, and now here we are almost 2 years later, with one of those deputy positions still not filled and now a second sitting there. And so I'm glad to hear that they're aware, because those are major positions that have left unfilled for quite some time now. So I know, Eric, you had a question as well.
Great point. One, I run 2 organizations, but they are not beholden to a level of bureaucracy. So I have a lot of nimbleness. And so I understand your pain. And so the question I have is, what can this board do for you going forward to help this organization out as you try and prioritize? Because I hear you prioritizing things that are of compliance first, which I think is really, really smart, and I get that. So for me, the question I have, and it's an essential question, is what can we do to kind of help you all along as you figure it out?
So, you know, that's a great question, and a part of it is starting with today, you know, sharing that information so everyone has the same information available to us. As we go through the process, you know, and you have opportunities as a board, right, to continue to engage with policymakers or engage, you know, with others. I think it's important that folks understand this information as well. You know, when we met with our legislators, and it was through them because they also asked us about our agency count, and just amongst themselves, they talked about this upcoming session, which we know is going to be a very active session. And I think, Laura, maybe 3 or 4, there are lots of even bill titles already, which we know are education related. So we know that's going to be there. And a part of our conversation was, if you're saying the agency shall do X, Y, Z, you've got to now think about what the capacity is to do those things. So if you're going to do that, you may need to add positions. You know, I don't have any more capacity as we are right now to continue to move staff around to support. And so we'll continue to share that information with this board. I see Laura here. So you're aware, and to the extent that this board as a voice, as a body, need to kind of engage in some of those conversations, I think that will be really important.
I have a question, but I don't know if I may be missing something or if I didn't hear something. So the vacant positions, they say vacant established, and those, the established means that those are funded positions, right? And so then building off of the question and your response, Commissioner, is the issue that there's not funding for positions to do additional work, or is the issue that there isn't enough capacity for people to do the outreach and do the actual hiring of human beings to get the work done? Does that make sense?
So the capacity for hiring is squarely outside of the Department of Education. Right. So that all rests in DAS. Our engagement is around, you know, being able to then do, whenever the positions are posted, that our hiring managers then get involved in the process of setting up the interview committee, setting up the interviews, and they get involved in determining as the postings are being drafted, right? It's certainly them doing that, but before any movement can be made on that, it has to go through the DAS process, right? They're the ones that do that. We initiate the process here, and it's all electronic, but and it has to also go through OPM for approval before the positions can be posted. Am I missing anything here, Kathy?
No, you're correct about that, Commissioner. So just to be clear then, the positions are funded, but the problem is that we can't actually get people hired because there's a process of an agency that takes on the entire state, that the ability to hire within the State Department of Education is bottlenecked by another agency. You don't have to answer that, but I'm fairly certain that that's what you just said.
That's what is holding us up for deputy commissioner?
The deputy's a little bit different. So yeah, that's a separate process. Yeah.
Okay.
But I agree with the commissioner, you know, when you mentioned, you know, as you're working on so many initiatives from last session, X, Y, and Z, you know, that this board and your agency has to oversee. And now we have a new session opening, and we're going to get more of X, Y, Zs coming our way, which I'm sure Mr. Harris and I are thinking the same way, that's
that's a little overwhelming and very overwhelming for you. So anything we can do, certainly let us know.
If I may.
Yes.
I guess my question is, what sort of influence can we have on the prioritization of hiring State Department of Education individuals to help with getting A through Z accomplished that end up coming through? Okay, so, because it doesn't sound like the issue is necessarily that there's not money, but there's the prioritization of making sure that these positions are actually
Urgency
open.
for
Yeah.
this department.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kathy.
I don't think there's an answer.
I don't know if there is an answer.
But I just want to put out, I just want to be clear, like, what is the challenge that we're actually facing, right?
And I think, the commissioner mentioned it earlier, and my comments about what's kind of happened to us is what's happened to DAS and every agency. So the agency that's charged now with doing this on behalf of all of us is restaffing in order to be able to have the capacity to, assist us. So they have hired a person, probably about 4 or 5 months ago now, who is dedicated to us, which is why we actually are seeing progress. We've actually had positions posted. Positions are in the midst of interviews for positions. But until, frankly, in fairness to DAS, until they're staffed, recovering from all the people retiring and leaving, I don't know that there's spare people to put to triage for any particular agency. And I don't think that's because there's not an interest in doing that. I genuinely think it's because we are all kind of...
This question, but for the record, so the staffing agency is short-staffed?
Yeah.
Very much so.
Got it. All makes great sense.
Especially in the leadership.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. No, but I appreciate this conversation, this dialogue. It was there for that purpose as we're entering into session, that we all have an understanding, because folks are constantly asking, and you may get questions as well, around either work that may be delayed or any of a myriad of things. As I said, Lori's in the process of, we've had these conversations, and so folks know where we are, and legislators have said that to us, like noted, fully noted, in terms of where you are and the work that they're really passionate about doing, and understanding what that means for implementation at the agency level. You mentioned as well, because we're talking about compliance, we want to do a lot of support, and you're going to hear some of that, and in our next presentation, we really want to be out there, making sure that we're supporting our districts as well, and those are trade-offs sometimes when you think about where the capacity lies. So with that, I'm going to ask our folks, I know another area of interest of this board is attendance, the issue of attendance in schools, and you've heard us talk about the LEAP program, so we want to really just, again, keep revisiting that. There's many, many articles in the papers and even nationally on this particular issue, and there's a lot of work here going on in the state that we wanted you to be aware of. So with that, I'll turn things over to our team.
So good morning. Thank you for having us. We hope to get to some good news quickly. Bring up the energy level in the room. Poor Kathy has we have some good stuff coming. So we wanted to start with sort of the current picture of what's happening with regard to chronic absence across the state. And some additional focus on alliance districts, and then we'll talk about some of the work that's been happening over the last couple of years around addressing some of those needs in our highest need districts, those that are demonstrating the highest levels of chronic absenteeism and sort of school avoidance. And we'll start with Ajit. We'll talk a little bit about that statewide data.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. So what you have up on the screen is our chronic absenteeism trend statewide for all students and some of our key student groups for the past 4 years, or 3 full years, as well as the current year. And clearly what you see is that with the pandemic, chronic absence increased significantly. So for example, the all students group in 1920, it was around 12%, and then in 21-22, the orange bars, things, it went to almost 24%. So nearly doubled in the pandemic. And I was on a national webinar with Kari Sullivan here, Kari Sullivan Custer, our education consultant extraordinaire in chronic absence area that, I think other states, the two other states, Ohio, I think, and Louisiana, were experiencing very similar kinds of trends. So where are we this year? In this year, as you can see, overall chronic absence is slightly up for all students. And this data is as of November attendance. So what that means is September, October, and November combined. And those 3 months roughly yield about 55 school days. It varies obviously by district a little bit. But so we're talking 50-odd school days. So if a student has 6 absences, then they would be deemed chronic absence in the 22-23 year-to-date number. So that's important to keep in mind. But then when you look across the student groups, what you see is that majority of the student groups are actually, the chronic absenteeism rates are actually lower this year, except for the students without high needs group, which is that second group, where you see the big jump from 12% to almost 17.5%, 18%. And, just to translate this into some numbers here, non-high needs, high needs students, last year, we had about, let me see here, high needs students, okay. We had about 88,000 students chronically absent in 21-22. This year, that number is about 82.5, roughly 82,500 students. So it's actually the number of high needs students who are chronically absent this year is lower. The rate is also lower. When we look at non-high needs students, that number increased from about 29,000 students to 41,000 students. So when you think about what might be reasons, and I know, Kari, there's a slide that we'll get into it. I spoke yesterday about the triple threat with flu, COVID, RSV type things where students may be out for a few days in these initial months. And if you're out again for 6 days, as of now, you'd be deemed chronically absent. So, historically, early chronic absence predicts future chronic absence. When I look at attendance averages, those are all pointing in the right direction. So I think what we might be seeing now is perhaps a group of students who are deemed chronically absent because of the triple threat health issue that we're facing. But again, we'll have to wait and see. But clearly the non-high need student group is what's driving it. All the other sort of traditionally, groups that have. So I think it's important to.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. So I just wanted to also note that, again, these data are from up through November of this year. But if you've been paying attention to the news at all, you've noticed that the incidences of COVID are starting to creep up. We knew that was going to happen. Our DPH partners indicated that would likely happen in January. And so we anticipate that we'll see those numbers spike again as they did last year with the Omicron variant in January, and then hopefully come back down.
The issue, though, regardless of the reason, is lost instructional time, which is why this is so important to us.
Absolutely. And with COVID now, it's up to 5 calendar day quarantine. So with weekends, it's possible it might really be 2-3 days a kid misses from school. So we'll have to see how this plays out in the long run when we look at a 180-day calendar. Could we go to the next slide, please?
I have a question about students experiencing homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? I mean, that's pretty high.
So the definition of students experiencing homelessness for the purposes of these data are any student that's identified by a school district as having unstable housing. So it's not necessarily students who are what you would traditionally think is homeless, but students who are staying with family because they've lost their housing, or their families have lost their housing due to the increase in rents that are happening. So they may be staying with someone else. They may have, other mental health, behavioral health issues that are causing them, to stay with other family members. Economic situations in which families are sharing sort of living conditions and things like that. So it's probably a higher number, but we know that because of sort of the transient nature, like they're living here one time, they're living over there at another time, and they're sort of couch surfing in different communities. Parents who have split, things like that are happening, that they tend to miss more schools. But I have to say that we've been working very closely with our districts. We've had, close to $10 million that's gone out to districts to support the liaisons in each district. Every district is required to have a liaison to support students experiencing homelessness, and providing that work to make sure those students have immediate access to school, regardless of whether or not they have their health assessments up to date, or their immunizations up to date, or other school records. The rule is get them into school and figure out the rest later. We're also embarking on, actually starting pretty quickly, and a campaign, promotional campaign, in print media and social media and a number of other areas to make sure folks in the community understand and how they can support students experiencing unstable housing situations. It means a student has to have equal access to all services and all activities that the school provides. So it's immediate and full access to opportunities.
Thank you, John. I appreciate hearing that. Something's being done.
Yeah, so I just had a quick question. You guys had mentioned that chronic absenteeism is defined, I think, in 6 days. Of absences. 6 days of absences?
It's chronic absence. The official definition is a student missing 10% or more of their days. So in a 180-day calendar, if a student is absent for 18 days for whatever reason, that student would be deemed chronically absent. Up to November, we have about 55 days. That's where the 6 comes from.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Follow up to that. How does that fit into quarantine periods for COVID-19? I know at my school, at least.
So if you're quarantining, if you're homesick due to COVID, and we are following, to my understanding, the CDC guidelines for 5 calendar days. So that's the 5 calendar days may not necessarily translate to 5 school days, because potentially weekend coming in there. So, John.
Yep. So it's 5 days and an alleviation of symptoms, right? So lessening of symptoms that have to occur at the same time, and a lack of fever, right? So that all sort of factors into. But to the commissioner's point, missing school is missing school, and so we're really, over the past several years, we're getting away from whether the child is truant or whether the child is absent, or whether the child is absent because of illness, or whether the student is absent because of a potential family vacation is another issue that we're trying to address. And what we're saying is, you can't teach a kid who's not there. So how do districts work early and often with students beginning to miss school and to...
We have quite a few deaths to go here, so I'm hoping to move us along.
And just to close out the prior conversation on students identified as homeless, it's roughly, as of now, about 2,500 students in that chart, and about 1,300 of them are deemed chronically absent, hence the 53%, just so you have a context of what the size of the group is. You can.
So you can move on. The board members have a copy of the deck.
Okay. So the next slide that you have is showing the status of chronic absence in our alliance districts. And what I wanted to showcase here, you see the rates for 21-22 and the rates for the current year as of November. The only district that had a rate last year that was greater than 50% was New Haven, is down from 58% to 45%. In this current year, they're the only district with a rate in the 40s. There are other districts with rates greater than 35%, highest chronic absence rate as of now. And you know from the state average that the state average is around 25%. So you can kind of see how these districts compare. Majority of them are higher than the state, but some are similar or maybe even lower. Next slide, please.
Okay, just keep going.
Just let me start. So we're gonna move into talking specifically about the learner engagement and attendance program, and start with some identified barriers. Kari's going to start with that. But before we do that, I just want to acknowledge the work of Kari Sullivan-Custer to my right. She's a Connecticut force, but is quickly becoming a national force in chronic absenteeism, and she's a large part of the reason for the success of this work.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to do this work. I really enjoy it. So as you saw from this data, we look at regularly monthly attendance data. We monitor it. We're the only state that has monthly data, so there are many states that are jealous of Connecticut. And so I meet with districts every other week, and every meeting we look at the data. And so we work closely with our districts and attendance leads to understand the reasons behind the increase in chronic absence. The information here was gathered at a December meeting of our LEAP coordinators. So what you'll see here on this slide is that illness and mental health issues related to stress and anxiety are leading causes for absences. We also have that triple secta, as Ajit said, of respiratory illnesses and a recent spike in a new strain of COVID that has really impacted attendance in November, which is the last month we have data for. I also want to share that, as you see, the illness and stress can be interrelated. For instance, we hear stories of a student who's out sick for 5 or 6 days, and then when they come back, they're behind in their classes. They have to catch up, and that causes them some more stress and anxiety, and they're falling behind in class. The other barriers that you see here, I'm not going to school for 2 years and feeling, well, it wasn't important then, it may not be important now. Jobs are keeping some of our high school students from school, so it's important to have programming in schools that kids want to be there so that they will come, and childcare. We see high numbers of absences and vacancies related to vacancies among teaching staff and substitute teachers. That kind of trickles down effect to the students. Vacations and family travel are another issue, and transportation. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Kari. So those, some of those reasons that came from districts also certainly were happening at the beginning of the pandemic. And so obviously there was an urgent need to address chronic absenteeism. This was early in 2021, after collecting that monthly data indicating, that there were some significant disparities in the attendance data. The data showed that urban, minority, low-income families and those who were high levels of remote learning were missing more school than others at the time. And so we also knew that, we needed to address those barriers, so the ones that Kari had just mentioned. Questions about the economy, when families were losing income based on lost wages, businesses were closing, lost wages and reduced salaries and things like that. And then just some basic needs, understanding housing situations, as we've just discussed, wellness, anxiety, stress due to the pandemic. All of those things were part of it. There is a program called parent-teacher home visiting. However, we knew at the time that parent-teacher home visiting wasn't the solution. Teachers were certainly had their hands full at the pandemic with working on in-person and remote instruction and a number of others. And so we really needed a sustained program. We needed a different program. We needed something that was sustained. And
And we knew that partners in the community were the answer, working with our community. They were really poised to support our family. And so from that was born the Learner Engagement and Attendance Program. And you'll hear some more about that as we go forward. Next slide, please. So the Learner Engagement and Attendance Program was a partnership between the Department of Education, the Governor's Office, and the RESC Alliance, and a number of other partners. We with Attendance Works, who you're all very familiar with. They have presented to the group as well as some information on the Parent Program and the creation of the program. The Governor's Office provides $1 million for this work in 15 districts. So a hallmark of this program are home visits, and you'll hear about that going forward. It's safe to say, however, that in addition to the home visits, we also would sprinkle in when it was not safe to do home visits. I mean, some families didn't want necessarily home visitors during COVID, and in those cases, our home visitors reached out either through Zoom or through Teams or with phone calls to connect with families.
So the home visitors that engaged their families during the pandemic included administrators, teachers, support staff, family members, and community partners. It's important to know that all are trained and supported by the Connecticut Home Visiting Hub that was created at NET with students at risk or already chronically absent and for school are identified for home visits by the school. Interventions are monitored by the school attendance teams and classroom teachers. There's a home visitor law that's implemented aggregate to identify common. This is important because parents information gathered during home visits, often with childhood, is designed, which is great for the home. From school weeks, what the students want to do. So we now have that a little next slide. So the research is very different from what we've had in the past. It focuses on what's first. Before talking about for child or we want to happen in families like that and relationships. So how this schedule opportunities for team members we don't think notes. We don't want to and then they just reach out to them and do the longer. So people ahead of this is fun on strength. And they teach the kids the work and what they do and regular getting school. So it's also that's
Thank you so much. I'm going to have to interview some of my friends. Francisco Bauer.
Yes,
Carolyn, we step back. Carolyn, and so nothing story the folks who I wanted you to get a sense of who they are and who I wanted to learn a little bit about them before we focus on. But over the past few years, actually has been in addition to the career as a leader, the hospital has completed the training coaching.
Hello.
Hello.
So, one that teacher makes
worked on. Where does it go from there, the communication back to the school? Does it just sit with guidance counselor, administration, teachers? How far is the communication spread?
in our district, when we try to commit to 2 home visits, but since I've been working in the community for more than 12 years, so they know where to find me. So it's impossible for me to stop in the second home visit. So I do the follow-up, at least for the community that I work with. I'm assigned to the Hispanic community because that's who I am. So I go through them, I follow through, and I make sure that those kids get to wherever they want to be. I have last year, it was so great to see increase on Hispanic community attending to community college, increasing the percentage of completion of FAFSA, which was amazing. The one who decide to a certificate, just a career to become an electrician or plumber, or because not everybody is meant to go to a university. But all our numbers, they went up because of LEAP, because of this program. So I believe in the program because I saw the number.
And I think the connection to the districts is also evidenced by Jenny Garcia, who's from the Torrington Public Schools, here in support, just to solidify that there's constant communication and it's a partnership.
Yeah.
So a common structure for LEAP in the district is for there to be a stipend, kind of a coordinator for LEAP at each school that is targeted for LEAP services. This is Waterbury, Meriden, and others, where the person's stipend is connected with the school attendance team and will deploy the home visitors and coordinate with the home visitors. And then that data goes into the home visiting log so that the district and school attendance teams can see what they're finding.
Okay, thank you. Other board?
I do have a question, maybe not, but an observation. Is there a distinct between using someone for their bilingual versus somebody with LEAP, or is it all intertwined? It sounds like you're also being used as bilingual translators and interpreters, right? For the amount of Latinos that are in your district. Is that what I'm hearing? Because that could be overwhelming.
It is. Yes. My regular job is as a district translator. I just go wherever they need me. But as I told you to the superintendent 2 days ago, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, yeah. I said the town is lucky that I like that what I do. And that's, I don't know, I work with my heart. I like what I do. I really like to help my community. I cannot say anything about other community because I'm just dedicated to my community. Because at some point in my life, I was like them. I didn't know anything about this country. I came from Venezuela to here, to a country that was full of rules. And to become a successful person in this country, you have to follow the rules. And that's what I'm teaching my community.
Claudia, I applaud both of you for the hard work and the dedication that you all do and continue to do the best you can. You're making a difference in the lives of those Latino kids or non-Latino children. So thank you.
Thank you. We love it. At least for me, we love that work because it's more when we receive than we give. Another thing about you listening to a big so it's also so I live and yeah. But it's I'm kind of feel
Thank you.
So I just really appreciate thank you for really demonstrating for us what the LEAP program really looks like on the ground. And to the question that you've asked is when we were setting up this program, it wasn't about just hiring people to come in that don't know the communities, to try to go establish relationships. And I think what you've seen demonstrated here, districts are making decisions based on folks who know the communities, are in the communities, and are able to have that relationship and connection. So thank you very much for that. You know, I recall when I was knee-deep in this work, 10% of chronic absence statewide was a problem. You know, we were working so hard at it. And so we've built on that just based on the work that's happening here now. And I just want to thank you all for doing that. And kind of the so what is what Ajit is just going to summarize in 2 minutes for us because we're needing to move along here. But we have a program that we invested in, and it's important for us to know so what. You know, is it working? And we hear the anecdotes, but we've also made sure there's a rigorous study that has happened for that as well, an evaluation, which Ajit will add to that. So, John, is there anything else you just need to wrap up? Okay, awesome. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
So, evaluation through our research collaborative was conducted by a team led by Dr. Stemler from Wesleyan and included the other three researchers listed there, Eric Brunner, Jacob Wardblow, and Steve Ross, Central and Yukon. Next slide, please. So bottom line is that students who receive the home visitation service showed an improvement of approximately 10 to 15% in the upper grades as high as 20 percentage points in their attendance 6 to 9 months after the first visit. There was one district that did not implement the LEAP model as designed. They did community canvassing instead of targeted home visits to students who were chronically absent. And their outcomes on the right-hand side really reflect, and the red line, by the way, represents when the first visit happened. Attendance before the red line to the left of it is flat, and after the red line, for all other districts, it increases. For that one district, it's flat because they really didn't implement the model. Next slide, please. This slide really just illustrates that in the elementary grades, the impact was a little less, but in the middle and high school grades, the impact is substantially higher. In all of these charts that are in here, the students who received the home visitation service are being compared to others like them who hadn't received the service as of that point. So they're in those same districts, but just hadn't received the service. You could see in the middle and high grades, 6 to 9 months after, you're up to almost 20 percentage point improvement. What that means is if your attendance prior to the visit was around 50%, next slide, please. And all this slide shows is that in-person visitations provided substantially greater outcome improvements, much less so with phone or Zoom. So whether it be in person at the home, at the school, or at another location, other could mean library, coffee shop, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever, personal meeting. So, and these data are possible because the home visitors use the log that Kari referenced before, where they're tracking for each student when the visit happened, plus our monthly attendance, which gives us month-to-month information on when what their attendance was prior to the actual visit and then what the attendance was after the visit.
Thank you very much.
If I'm reading the chart correctly, then the attendance continued to increase from month to month after the visit.
That is correct. It's not, one question we get is this because of multiple visits? And that's not really what the data are saying as much as, because a lot of students just got the one visit. But yeah, incremental improvement.
So it's changing a habit, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
With those relationships and all of that, and that's really important.
And in that first meeting, if you know what the barriers are and you can solve it, and that removes that barrier, and then the re-engagement process happens.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. I really wanted to spend a little bit of time today going through this as everybody's having this conversation. I know other states are looking to develop LEAP programs in their states, and I think this is seen as kind of one of the first intervention through the pandemic around attendance nationwide that we have impacts on. So I really just want to thank the folks for all the work that they're doing. More than anything else, we want to re-engage your students in the classroom. If they're not there, they won't be learning, and we recognize that. So thank you very much. Ajit, we just want to do quickly, the next item is the Alliance District Focus. Next slide. And we just really want to talk about the pandemic recovery and Alliance districts just briefly.
I have to pull up the document.
You got it, okay. And while we're doing that, we'll keep moving. And I wanted to, on the shout out, so on the slide deck that you have, the first shout out was really just, again, going back to the How's My Child Doing, using the data from EdSite, that program that we did for families, that was just a picture of that. And the next one was really just pictures of folks at the Next Generation Accountability System results release that we had. Wanted to appreciate again John and Ajit, who were there as we answered questions, and appreciated districts Bristol, Learn, Madison, and Stamford Charter School for Excellence, as they were schools of distinction and were able to really talk about what it is that they are doing in that regard. And Keith, just wanted to have the next two slides to talk about the Career Connect program expansion that happened. We were at the press. There's a picture there with Keith, myself, standing there. And the next about the Resco Family Fun Night. So Keith, if you just had a minute on what that is.
Absolutely, and good morning. Yes, still good morning, everyone. I did not see you earlier at subcommittee. It's great to see you all again. The commissioner and I were thrilled to be invited by the governor to his press conference, which announced the beginning of the Career Connect CT portal. This is a fantastic website that the state developed and supports, which matches up Connecticut residents who are either seeking their first job, returning to the job market, or currently employed looking for career advancement with the training programs that'll give them the skills necessary for their next step. And so anyone in Connecticut can sign up on the portal. It's very easy. You just have to create an account, answer a brief survey about your current skills and what you're looking for, and then they're going to be matched up with a coach who will find the appropriate training program for them. The training programs are all free of charge, and the side benefit is that as leaders on the Governor's Workforce Council and Commissioner, I were thrilled to be part of it.
Thank you. And the next is Family Fun.
Yes. Our Resco Family Fun Night was held at the Riverside Magnet School at Goodwin University I believe last week. Our Family Fun Nights are new programs that the Resco office has developed. There was another one last night. There will be one next week, and I believe 2 more after that. These are application assistance programs for families to come in, meet with Resco staff and staff from our magnet schools, where they'll get all sorts of assistance on helping to correctly fill out school choice applications. These series of application assistance programs are billed as family fun nights because we want the whole family there. We want the siblings, the young, the old, and the families to all gather. They're clearly happy. There's food. Last night, for example, had a grilled cheese truck that was very popular, and games for the kids, and a great way to further get the word out about school choice in Connecticut and make it easier for folks to apply in the Hartford region.
Thank you very much. That is our agency report.
And
did you want me to do the?
Yes. Oh, yes. Out of sight.
Commissioner asked me to just do a brief perspective on the pandemic recovery dashboard that we have, and
focused on the Alliance District.
That's correct. So you can pull up that dashboard from the Ed site under performance, and what this dashboard shows is the relation of achievement prior to the pandemic to the most recent year, 21-22. So what this is showing you is it starts off with all districts, but through a simple filter up here, you can select Alliance districts, and then it shows you just the Alliance districts. And what this is showing you is where the district was in 2018-19 on the x-axis, and how different is their performance in 2018-19 from 21-22. If their performance in 21-22 is higher than what it was in 18-19, they will be above the 0 line. If they're below, that means their performance in 21-22 is lower than what it was in 18-19. So as you can see here, there are districts at all points in the achievement spectrum here. The further left you are, the lower the performing. Further right you are, the higher the performing. As you can see, there's a lot of regression, unfortunately, that's happened with the pandemic. There are a couple of districts that are higher than where they were before the pandemic. The size of the bubble represents the size of the student body. So the larger the bubble, the larger the district. And as you can see here, this is part of the reason why we're intervening and assisting in New Haven, as Commissioner has referenced before. You can switch to a different subject, mathematics, and you can see all the bubbles get a little bit left, and you can see, again, relative to each other where they are in terms of alliance districts. This is the kind of data that we've been looking at to figure out who needs assistance, who should be applauded for the work. You can also go to school level with the selection of alliance districts and then see how the schools within those alliance districts are doing. We've been looking at that as well. Again, you notice some are above that 0 line, and what are they doing? Some are above 75, our target. They're clearly higher achieving schools. So in addition to that, you can also hone in on our opportunity districts, which is the 10 districts. You can look at just the schools within those districts, or again, go back to district level view and see how the districts as a whole are doing. So this dashboard is one of the dashboards we've been using. It defaults to all students, but clearly you can select high need student groups and then look to see how high need students are doing relative to non-high need in those same districts. So again, you can cover all of those who are and what which are the districts. So again, this is a report we released in August with our assessment results release, and this is part of our accountability too. So the performance index is part of our accountability as well.
Thank you very much. Questions, Mr. Taylor?
Gene, first,
I'm here.
This is brilliant. I was looking at this yesterday, and it's just remarkably informative. Do you have any sense as to who is going to it and using it, looking at it?
Not who, but I believe we have usage statistics. I haven't looked at it in a while, but
So you don't know if the schools or the you don't know if it's penetrating that way.
well, our biggest consumers we know are the schools in the districts, because this means something very directly to them. But we don't know like user profiles, like if it's board members. I mean, we try to do outreach, but we don't know at a person level what their affiliation is.
But, as you did get kudos from a couple of superintendents that said that this is so helpful to them because you can look and see exactly where you are, and even comparing to see what districts. And I say from a standpoint, if you're a district similar position, maybe finding some more success, it's kind of nice way visually to take a look at it, and you can also disaggregate the data. But this is also very important to us. And the training that we're doing with families and community is so that they are also able, Mr. Taylor, to understand the utility of this level of information that they have. And you can then go back to your school report or your district report. And we're saying when you're having conversations locally, those conversations can certainly be informed by information. And this is really important, but it is also informing us as we're thinking about the supports that's necessary through the Alliance District, through the turnaround office, but just in general. So this is a good marker for us. And so this is all the opportunity districts, I think, is what you're showing here. And so quickly you can look to see who's above the line and who's below the line and where the changes are occurring. So that's really important for us. And we wanted you to be aware of that as well as we continue to have conversations that are focused on the Alliance District.
I thought it was just a brilliantly clear and easy to use presentation. I really have to congratulate everybody who's involved with it.
And we've seen, just to answer your question, Helen, too, we've seen in accountability very often districts will reference this. They'll either use a slide that we can tell is right from the deck, or they'll reference EdSite in their conversation. So we've seen it in that as well in different districts.
Another kudos for Nation leading work with our very small but mighty staff that's continuing to deliver results.
Yeah, I personally acknowledge Stephanie O'Day, Danielle Bousquet, John Watson, and Dave Alexandro. Those are the 4 folks who do lots of other things, but one of those things is EdSite. And Alan, if you're into other reports, you can look at the Next Generation Accountability Report, which is pretty cool. I'm showing it up there. If you go to Overview and Next Generation, this comes up. You can actually look at trends over time on the different accountability indicators, and you can actually compare. You can pull up multiple districts, and you can actually then compare the state to those districts. The pandemic dashboard gives you a 2-year look, sort of 19 to 22. The Next Generation Accountability gives you even more of a trend look. So there are different ways to look at this, and we suggest kind of, as much awareness of the measures and what they mean, the more informed you can be about what you do with it. Because we don't want folks to necessarily jump and change everything based on one data point, but we want them to make a more holistic decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Our next item that I'll need a motion on is the report on agricultural science and technology education graduates 5 years after graduation.
So moved. Second?
Irene will be presenting to us.
Good morning, Commissioner Russell Tucker, Chair Benham, and board members. Thank you. So in your board packet, you have the annual report on agricultural science, technology, and education graduates 5 years after graduation. This report was last presented to the board and approved on December 1st, 2021. With me is my colleague Harold Mackin. He's the education consultant for career technical education, but specifically agriculture, and oversees the implementation of the ag centers. In the executive summary, we outline in the introduction the history, the background findings are, and the conclusions that we have drawn, and then finally the recommendation. So we are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions, Bob? No, unfortunately, Bonnie is not with us today because she would have had numerous questions.
I may add that as a result of the report last year, we did actually Harold organized some site visits, and Bonnie did join us on those site visits, and we had a great time working with the goats and other animals that we saw in these ag centers. So I think she thoroughly enjoyed herself, as did I.
I often visit my ag center in my hometown in Wallingford at Lyman Hall High School, but they have the ag program there. So it's one of my favorite places to go, just to purchase flowers and holiday wreaths and so forth. So it's a wonderful program. I've always wished when we've seen this report in the past that we can get this kind of report on all of our graduates.
And I just want to add thanks to Harold, and this is something that he's really passionate about and continues to champion for us. Thank you very much.
Any questions? We do need a vote on this?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All in favor of accepting the report, again, on agricultural science and technology education graduates 5 years after graduation? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
The next item, do we have financial matters?
No.
No. Kathy says with really. Our next item is the consent agenda. We have a motion to.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to committee reports. Eric had to leave a little bit early, but I'll talk a little bit about academic standards and assessment that we just had Monday. And we had a wonderful presentation on social emotional habits for grades 4 through 12 that will take place at the full board. We'll be seeing, I believe, hopeful next month that they'll be seeing it. It was a wonderful presentation of a continuance. There already is one in place for K3, and this document will flow now all the way up to K12. So when you see the report, you'll be very impressed to see what it's like. Accountability and support. Our next meeting is February 15th. I do want to let you know that Irene, you can contact Irene if you're interested in charter school renewal visits. Those are going to be starting. So if you're interested in that. I also want to report on our accountability of last month. We actually had 2 schools in front of us. Great Oaks Charter School from Bridgeport was showing improvements, and that was one of the presentations we had. And then we had our Alliance Showcase, which is always just wonderful to see in accountability. And East Haven joined us with a wonderful program called the it's something that they got with additional funding that we received.
It was just an amazing presentation. They are doing such a terrific job. Folks that have come out one by one and made really this is I want to share that with you. And Don?
Yep, our finance committee did meet finally on December 16th, and our only real business was to approve the audit plans to move it forward to full court, which we did. So, and I addressed all the other concerns earlier.
Okay, thank you. Elliot?
So Legislation and Policy Development Committee met this morning, and we heard from an update from the Greenwich School District on their racial imbalance status, I'll say, and have asked them to develop a plan that has more actionable, more aggressive strategies to actually address the decades-old issues around imbalance. So they'll come back to us in September. And that's it.
Thank you. And then I know Pat is not with us today, but Rocky Stallings, who's the Chief of Staff for Technical Education, is here to give us an update.
Board Chair Van and board members.
Could you speak into the microphone, Rocky?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Good afternoon, Commissioner Russell Tucker, Board Chair Benham, and board members. My name is Ronki Stallings. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Connecticut Technical Education and Career System, also known as CTEX. I'm honored to sit before you and represent our great system to share a few updates. The Auto Body Association of Connecticut hosted their first annual charity golf tournament over the summer, raising $15,000 to benefit the Automotive Collision Repair and Refinishing Program at CTEX. The donation was presented to students and staff last month and will be used for tools and equipment in the program system-wide. So thank you for your partnership with the organization in the future. Electric Boat was in the building at Norwich Tech yesterday to interview senior students for jobs beginning this summer when they graduate. The interview session was a success as EB offered jobs to 29 of our senior students for positions ranging from pipe fitting, mechanics, and electrical. The EB staff was very impressed with the soft skills of our students, and we are very proud of our students and their future here in Connecticut. A note of appreciation to Electric Boat for their continued partnership with our system, but moreover, gratitude goes out to our guidance department and staff at Norwich Tech for all of their hard work over the last 6 months in preparations for yesterday's interviews. At CTEX, we are proud of our students as they thrive and shine throughout the state of Connecticut's workforce. I thank you all for your time today and wish each of you a prosperous and healthy new year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions at all from board members? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nasby?
Nothing to report today from the.
Oh, okay. We'll move on to CERC. You have the report, the monthly report from CERC. I'm also going to add, I was able to attend another high school and observe the African American Black Latino classroom at Newington High School this time. And again, I will say to my board members that this is an opportunity that is afforded to all of you, and I would really encourage. I know Will was trying to come with me that time and was unable to, but it was just another terrific lesson. The lesson I observed this time was a Harlem Renaissance period art gallery, and so the classroom was transformed into an art gallery where students had to go around like they were in an art gallery, and it was just an amazing experience. And again, the debriefing afterwards was it was just amazing to me that this is taking place, and the passion of the educators doing these courses is really, and the diversity of this classroom was really great too, and the students were, they're always curious when, two adults that they don't know are, sitting in their classroom, but they were excellent, and had a
participate right along with them. On that note too, Irene, again, reach out to Irene because through CERC, they are now trying to set up some visitation for board members. So if you're interested in that, you can contact directly Irene to do that if you would like to observe one of those classrooms. And then just one other committee that I just want to bring up that's not on the list, and that's our EES committee. That's our Education Evaluation Support Committee that I am the representative of the board. This is a committee that's been ongoing since, wow, it's almost 2 years now. It started, I think, in March of 21. We will be seeing as the full board in the spring what draft they are working on at this point. Very hard-working committee that has done excellent work, and we really have gone through a lot of different drafts. We are now being, well, not now, but just in the last few meetings, we are brought together with John Costas, who you know from his working on our strategic plan. And so he's doing a lot of the work with Sharon Fuller and Shawana Tucker. So it's actually great work going on. But I did want you to know that it's an ongoing process, and we'll be seeing something from the teacher evaluation, actually educator evaluation, all educators coming forward. So I wanted you to be aware of that. And that is all. We can take a motion to adjourn. I'm sure we're all in favor. Thank you very much.